What's up, guys? It's your boy James, aka 68J, coming to you on this amazing Tuesday. And I'm joined by somebody I've been trying to get on to the show for a while. Big fan of his work, the one and only Joel Nelson. How you doing, my brother?
Doing well. Thanks for having me on the show.
Oh, absolutely, man. It's really, really exciting having you on. I've been following you for quite some time. Love what you do. And what I want to do before we even get into the questions, if you don't mind, let's talk about who is Joel Nelson prior to crypto, if you don't mind sharing that.
Yeah. I'm actually I'm an electrical engineer by trade. I focus mostly on power and controls. Actually, concurrently, still I lead a team of electrical engineers designing electric vehicle charging stations across the nation. A lot of our clients are gas stations or big companies, those kinds of things. A little bit more about me. I have 3 kids.
Oh, nice.
Just blessed.
Big time.
Lived in California for a number of years. I actually live in Denver, Colorado now. I've been an engineer for most of my career, actually. Started a real estate business a couple years ago. Discount real estate, wanted to kind of make real estate a little bit more affordable. Kind of always had that entrepreneurial spirit myself. The whole idea of kind of making both the buy and the sell side more affordable for the people either selling or the people buying. We split the buyer's agent commission with our buyers in most states that allow us to do that.
Okay.
And then on the sell side too, we're a flat $29.50. So, the average house saves between 15 plus, I've had clients that have saved 40 grand in real estate commissions just going through my company, soldwithsage.com. Always had that entrepreneurial spirit. I think that's one of the ways that kind of drove me into crypto. Initially, I got into Bitcoin. Bitcoin was my first investment in crypto, I'd say. That was 2014.
Oh, wow.
A couple buddies and I, we really we loved the idea of the decentralized finance model of Bitcoin. Started doing research about it, got invested, and I've been in and out of Bitcoins between bear and bull markets, just making money here and there on the side.
So 2014.
Yeah.
You obviously I love the story, man. You wanted to give back by having affordable homes, which is huge. That says a lot about you as a person. And obviously you super blessed. Me and you talked a little bit about backstage about the children, and I've got 6, you got 3. So it's funny because I don't know if you get this. A lot of times people say, when I say I've got 6 kids, oh my God, how did you do it? I'm like, man, you don't understand. That's a blessing. And so but
yes,
definitely having kids is amazing. So so you got into crypto in 2014. You saw Bitcoin. Someone told you about it. Now, how did that journey take you towards, let's say, finding out about XRP?
Yeah, that's a great question. I was a Bitcoin maxi for the longest time.
Wow.
It's actually a Stanford. I don't know if you've seen the interview, but in 2018, Stanford Law interviewed Brad Garlinghouse. Joe Bankman was also on that show. Brad Garlinghouse was being interviewed about XRP and everything else. He made some statements that I thought were pretty bold, saying that some of the early engineers that had developed Bitcoin kind of they went and created the XRP ledger to fix some of the original scalability issues that were just present with the Bitcoin design. That being, energy consumption, bandwidth of transaction capability, speed, cost per transaction, to name a few. And so that kind of got me started on my journey here. It's like, well, what is XRP all about? Started jumping in and got, anywhere from banking documents, trying to dive into just finding any information behind that that would show any use case at the time. Really was looking for an asset that was undervalued but had a lot of future potential.
Right.
Kind of like, you know, trying to find the next Google, the next Amazon,
right.
Before the rest of the world had found it. I loved all the partnerships that XRP and that Ripple themselves were setting up with a lot of these banks. The more I dove into it, the more I saw too that the XRP ledger is just built with incredible speed, incredible bandwidth, extremely cheap from a transaction standpoint. There's not much price volatility due to the speed as well. That the finance world that, you know, really was definitely checking out the technology. A lot of these I call them white papers and more research papers between banks, the BIS, the World Bank, the IMF, those to name a few, really did a deep dive, and we're testing out a lot of XRP technology. You know, you hear terms like distributed ledger technology,
right.
RTGS, real-time gross settlement, cross-border transactions. I loved what, you know, PayPal, the Venmos of the world did just for, you know, paying your friends when you go out to dinner. You know, you want to split the bill.
Right.
It's like XRP had that same idea for the banking system. It's like, hey, there's so much friction in the entire system. How do we solve that friction, make it more efficient?
Right.
And so, yeah, the more I dove into it, the more bullish I became. It was right after the SEC lawsuit had kind of started. You know, I saw that also as another excuse. You know, most retail may have been shied away from XRP at that point. It's like, oh, we have a long lawsuit ahead of us. It's going to hurt price growth and everything else.
Yeah.
You know, where some people fear, I look for opportunity in that regard.
I love it.
And so, yeah, you have this asset that, you know, they took it off a lot of exchanges at the time too. So it's very hard even for Americans to buy it. I had to get creative. I had to use like decentralized exchanges in order to exchange one asset for another to get XRP. And I know there was Uphold and other platforms at the time. I personally had a lot of problems accumulating through those platforms. I don't know if it was just what I was doing at the time, but
right.
You know, DeFi was definitely a blessing in disguise to allow me to enter into XRP and at some really good prices. And yeah, the more I've gotten into it, the more, yeah, go ahead.
No, I was going to ask you, you know, I know what everyone's thinking is looking at this because I'm the same way. I got in 17, and anybody that got in before me, I'm just in awe of who they are, because you had to have a certain mindset, to be honest with you, Joel, to get into Bitcoin at a time where everyone was talking down. Like the people you see like loving it and embracing it now, like the Black Rocks, they were talking down. It was crap. It was this, you know, I've heard, I think Warren Buffett said it was like battery acid. Just some of the crazy things. Rat poison. And so, you know, you had to have a strong mindset. So I got to ask the question that everyone's thinking right now, and that is this.
Yeah.
When you got in 2014, it's not about when you got, as far as purchasing, I'm not going to ask that question, but what was Bitcoin at that time and XRP at that time, if you could recollect? What was the prices at that time?
You know,
roughly.
I got in Bitcoin around $400 a coin, you know, to be honest.
Okay.
I didn't know about XRP probably until around 2018 or so. That was, you know, several years later. But yeah, I was solely focused on Bitcoin at that point. I was a Bitcoin maxi to the end, to the fault. You know, I think the longer I was in it, the more I had done research about some of these other coins, I started to realize, you know, Bitcoin had some clunkiness to it. You know, the transaction fees were at times high. You had this new ESG narrative coming down more recently, talking about energy consumption and other things. And I said, hey, you know, is this really something long term? And honestly, it's quite a speculative asset. So you know, with that comes volatility in price. And you know, I started asking myself a lot of questions. Is this a coin that really is to be adopted by the financial system? You know,
And
this
I
is
want,
bold to say, because I know there's probably a lot of Bitcoin maxis out there, but is this something that would be a viable currency worldwide? I guess, could be adopted and provide a lot of utility value at the end of the day. And once I started focusing on that utility aspect of things, I think I transitioned a lot of my investments away from Bitcoin and more into some of these other assets, more focused in that ISO 20022 space.
Yeah.
My eyes were just opened about the platforms and infrastructure that the financial world's building here in the background. So
yeah, and the reason that I asked that question is because it took a certain belief. Like when it was at $400, the likelihood of them saying it could go to zero was very likely. I mean, it's not like it is today where it's easy for people to go back and say, well, let me look at because, one of the things we get, Joel, and as an influencer, I get it all the time. I'm sure you hear it. And that is, I shoulda, coulda, woulda, oh, I shoulda, I wish I could, because I always say, look, if you got Bitcoin at $1, you probably would have sold it at 100 if you were lucky. If you got it at 400, you probably would have been out by 1,000. It takes a really strong person to be able to make it during that time. But the thing that I love about that, Joel, is that it's validation that we're in the right space, that this is a real thing. See, it was a joke until it wasn't. It was talked about until it wasn't. Yeah. And so what I tell people is, when you look at things that were created to be greater than, like XRP, to do all the things Bitcoin couldn't do. And then people get, and I want you to answer this here in a second, but people get frustrated, and I don't want to get too far ahead of myself on my questions. They get frustrated because of price. Oh, it's not sexy. It's not shiny like some of these meme coins, these Shikaka coins, these, whatever it is. And it's like, no, but if you understand, that's why it's so important to do your research, because if you understand what it was created for, and the fact that it hasn't even really been embraced by institutions to do what it was created for. But again, I love the history and meeting people like you, because it just really talks about the fact that you had a strong mindset. You had to be strong during that time. And I actually appreciate people like you, because you paid the price for people like us to go back and say, okay, you know what? This is real. It's happening. It's the validation is there. Now we're looking at a Bitcoin that Joe had the mindset, the belief, the intelligence to see at 400, but now it's at 63,000, and then are you willing, are you, like, I always make this joke where I always make this comment where I say, can you imagine feeling sick if you got in at 400 and got at 5? Well, how do you think you're going to feel if you got in at 50 cents in XRP and you get out at $1? So it's kind of that same thing. I want you to speak on that, if you don't mind, about opportunity and timing.
Yes, 100%. My motto, and I hate to be cliche, but like, Rome was never built in a day, especially for the world and everything to get behind, incredible new technologies. Yeah. It takes time. It really does. I don't know. I like the idea. At the time, I like the idea of this decentralized platform where, if what really got me into crypto? Have you read the book, The Creature of Jekyll Island?
I have not, but I've heard all about it.
Okay. It's an incredible book. It pretty much breaks down the idea. I highly recommend it. It's probably thicker than my Bible. I'll tell you that. It's a thick book.
Okay.
But it breaks down the history. It breaks down kind of the basics behind the financial system, the economies, the central banking system, how they work, what is fiat currency? I think a lot with that, it exposes a lot of the problems with our current systems. And so, I was, after reading that book, it kind of led me to start searching for, it's like, hey, are there solutions out there that can solve some of these problems?
Right.
And, at the time, like I said, I discovered Bitcoin. I thought it was innovative. It was different than everything else, in a world, we still were doing ACH transfers that were taking 3 to 5 business days. Right. I understand the world's now transitioning. Here in the near future, we should have, next day transactions. Some banks already have implemented, instantaneous transaction payments themselves, but it seemed innovative. I love trying new things. I love pushing into old systems. I'm an 8 on the Enneagram. I'm a challenger. And I love just supporting new ideas that I think are just innovative and can kind of stir up the pot a little bit. I think that's another reason why I started my real estate business personally. It's like, hey, I didn't like the large commission model that came with selling homes. Like, if you compare real estate commissions here in the US, they're 5 to 6% on average. In Europe, they're only about 1 to 2%.
Yeah.
So of the sale cost. So every time you sell a home, a huge chunk of your equity is going into a middleman's hands, and that is the realtors at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, being in that space, you know, I feel like I can say those things myself, but yeah, I love kind of poking the bear in a way, and going after technologies that are innovative and stir the pot a little bit.
Yeah, well, anyone who got into Bitcoin at 400 and had that vision is definitely a friend of mine. So I appreciate you in a major way. Let's change the go in a different area here with let's talk about John Deaton. Obviously, a lot of people know his story. He's come out with a phenomenal book. Not sure if you were able to read it. I was able to hang out with him here in XRP Las Vegas. Matter of fact, he's committed to coming on the show with many others. I'm really, really excited about him coming on, but I had an opportunity to spend some time with him. Your thoughts on him, what he represents as far as fighting for the truth, for justice, and running for Senate right now, if you don't mind.
Yeah. I highly endorse him. I feel like, and I don't want to get too political here, but I feel like there's plenty of politicians on both sides of the fence that are playing the career politician game, and they're kind of, in a way, puppets for the elitist ruling class system, in a way that they're there to continue to serve their own narratives, or, you know, those who are kind of behind them in those narratives. I think we need somebody. And when you look at it, it's most of the proposals of various regulation that Elizabeth Warren has put out, most of them get shot down, you know, to a fault. She's there to fearmonger and create FUD in amongst investors, you know, and I think she's done a pretty good job about that. Now, you know, there aren't many results behind a lot of her proposals. I think we need somebody, though, that's pro crypto at the end of the day. You see, we need somebody who's going to fight for the people and be a people's voice. And I feel like John Deaton is that man, especially too with the SEC and the lack of clarity, the continual flip-flopping on, hey, I'm for this or I'm against this. You know, we're for the people. We're here to provide clarity and regulation, yet, you know, there is a lack thereof. And if anything, they've created more confusion at the end of the day. Yeah. We need good politicians that can stand behind people and be representative of the people at the end of the day, rather than are there just more for their career at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I agree with you wholeheartedly. I always say, you know, it's nothing that's happening right now in crypto in the United States has anything to do for the people, because I haven't seen anything personally that they've done. And again, as a business owner, you know, we're used to certain things, seeing the government do certain things. I think crypto has really opened up our eyes to a lot of the corruption and things that's going on. And I think it took things like FTX, you know, for us to see how they kind of straddle the fence and play both sides. And yet the guys in prison, you know, I won't get too much into that, other than he committed some things or did some things that put him in prison. But yet one of the biggest felonies, there's several, they dismissed. And that's where all these people's stolen funds went, as far as to politicians. And so it just makes you wonder, what type of justice are we dealing with? It makes you wonder. It actually makes you lose hope that there is a fair judicial system out there to you know, do what it was created to do, and also to protect the people. And so, you know, I always say this is just another form of, I call it financial slavery. I call it, they want to keep people in the matrix. I call it, they like a system where people, we're born into a world where we're taught to go get an education, to build someone else's dream, to trade time for money, to do just enough not to get fired, and they pay us just enough not to quit, so that we can retire on a percentage of what barely got us by in the first place. That's how I see it. Right. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, 100%. Well, even Social Security, they just announced this week that by 2035 that you know, it's going to fail. So the current generation that's not retired, we're paying in. We've been paying our entire lives. Even the next generation, for example, is paying into this failing Ponzi scheme. Our payments, I'm saying the quiet part out loud right now, but
No,
it's
no,
like our
please.
payments are currently supporting the retiring generation at this point. That's what a Ponzi is. The current payers are the ones supporting the exit liquidity, or the current consumers of that Ponzi. It's been that way. It's probably been that way ever since its inception. It's really unfortunate. I highly recommend that book, The Creature of Jekyll Island. It talks about this, kind of financial enslaving beast system.
Yeah.
The whole idea of inflation and fiat currency and printing money is, in a way, an enslaving attribute of the financial system itself. The working class continually has to constantly battle a devaluing dollar. The more they print, the more that's in circulation, the less value you have for every dollar you have in your pocket. And so, we're working against a system that's working against us.
Yeah.
We're constantly trying to find investments that allow us to kind of, in a way, keep up or at least battle that inflationary enslavement. There's a story I read on X about a week or two ago about a lady down in Mexico who had stored all these Mexican pesos in a shoebox under her bed. And after her death, her family went through her house and, they were tallying up all of these things. And the value of that money was worth pennies on the dollar from when, she put the money into that box.
Wow.
Imagine if she had purchased gold or silver, an asset that holds utility and value in the real world.
Right.
That money would have grown by leaps and bounds over the years. The problem is the fiat system itself is designed in a way to tax the working class and make it harder and harder over time for us to purchase goods and continue to live with the same quality of life.
Yeah, and they know that, which is crazy. They know what they're doing. They create chaos only to offer us the solution, and then everyone gets so happy about a $1,200 check, but we have no idea where the millions or billions that are going that are printed. We're not seeing all that money, and it's funny that you say that because they know what's happening with the monetary system, and that's why they're so against crypto, because they realize that challenges that exact issue. And so instead of trying to make it clear so people can win, it's about control. It's about how they can get their pockets fat and let the banking institute, the JP Morgan, everyone else catch up. Because remember, from zero to 20 something thousand is where it seems like everyone started getting interested. They want to play catch up. They want to get as much as this as they can so that we get scraps. They throw the scraps at the everyday average person. A few of us will get it. Just kind of like in our normal system, there's some people who will make it from sports and from singing and throwing a football, and maybe you do real estate. Just a few of us will make it, but the majority won't. And that's what they're hoping for.
Right, exactly. They want people to not know what's going on. They don't want people to pay attention until it's too late, and they then start to feel the system encroaching upon them in a way.
Yeah.
100%.
I agree with you. Let's go into something, because I definitely respect you, your mindset, and the fact that some of the things you've done in your life warrants that you really do your research. You really do your due diligence. You said that early on in the show. So with that being said, a person who does his due diligence, someone who's looked at Ripple, I'm sure in its entirety, XRP, would you say, based off of that research, Ripple is a solid company? And if so, why? I know the answer to that, but I want to hear your side.
Yeah, great question. I 100% believe it's a solid company. I would, I'm no financial advisor per se. Everything is my opinion and my opinion only. I'll probably state that a couple of times here on this show.
That's right.
I encourage people to go do their own research. At the end of the day, based on the market that Ripple is going after and the problems that they are solving, there's a good chance that Ripple will be comparable in size, if not larger, than the Googles and the Amazons of the world. The incredible impact that they are making in just the small market and continually building infrastructure that they are every day growing here in the financial system. and to see how they've come too, even over the last, I'd say decade or so is pretty incredible, to say the least. A lot of people probably they're like, oh, well, XRP is only $50 or 50 cents, right now per coin.
Right.
Those people are worried only about the immediate price. They need to have a more long-term focus on what are the problems being solved, what are the solutions that Ripple and XRP, amongst other ISO coins, are solving, and what impact will that utility have on the price here in the near future. Based on the research papers, banking presentations, white papers that I've seen from the BIS, the MIF, they're looking to integrate distributed ledger technology, and Ripple is one of those companies that is going to be in the forefront in solving those problems for the new financial system here in the near future.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And, it's funny because sometimes I just dumb it down to comparisons of the turtle and the hare's old childhood book that I read. And the rabbit took off and is just doing this. And yeah, you'll see this coin take off. And then you start, but at some point you got to ask yourself, why? Like, what does it do? What does it do? Yeah, you took 1,000 and went to 10,000. You're excited and all these different, it's shiny, it's sexy, but the turtle, what, and I think Ripple is a turtle in this case where, I compare it. I don't know how far you go back as far as your knowledge is with things that happened like in the 80s, but there was this Olympics. It was these two girls that were skating for the Olympics, Nancy Kerrigan and Tanya Harding. And Tanya Harding hired this mugger to hit Nancy Kerrigan in her ankle so she couldn't perform, so that she could get the starting the starting job for the Olympics. And I look at it like that, where everything that has been done against Ripple is not by circumstance. They didn't just get there and spin the wheel with the top 50 cryptos and then it landed on Ripple. This is not something they rolled dice and it came out on XRP. That this was strategically done because they understood what Ripple or what XRP was created for. And I really believe that this was strategically done. And, I think one of the biggest travesties that we all looked at in the beginning, which was, them going after XRP, will probably end up being one of the greatest stories because I feel like now we're coming out of the mud where a lot of people are entering into the mud. Though even those people who didn't support us, you look at people who turned their back. You mentioned it early. People did list in XRP, Coinbases, and this company, and now all those companies, even companies where people are like, get it on your, like your Robinhoods, whatever. Now they're all starting to feel the wrath of the SEC, and here we are, where we're talking dollar amount now, or how do we get this resolved? And so I just, I say this is going to be the greatest story in someone's life or one of the biggest regrets. And it's all predicated off of doing the right research, in my opinion. If you want to make a comment on that, we can move on to the next question.
Yeah, 100%. The more research too I've done, it's kind of interesting. Going back to that 2018 Stanford Law interview with Brad Garlinghouse, where Joe Bankman. So you talked about Sam Bankman-Fried earlier. It's interesting how interconnected the Bankman family is, even within the crypto industry themselves, even before Sam Bankman and FTX were created. And I don't want to get too much into the conspiracy level.
Please speak your mind. That's what this show's about, is keeping it 100. That's hard.
But if you go back to what Brad Garlinghouse had shared in that interview, he said, a couple of the early engineers who designed Bitcoin went and created XRP because they saw scalability issues, mostly that behind, energy consumption, speed, transaction cost, bandwidth, etc. So you break down, what he said in that interview, and this is a small portion of the interview. You look at David Schwartz, his filing in the couple decades ago, right before Bitcoin was released, he was working for the NSA. Yeah. Now this is speculation here, but you start putting the puzzle pieces together. Working for the NSA, filed a patent behind crypto minting and a cryptography system.
That's right.
It's pretty fascinating too that even when the white paper came out for Bitcoin with Satoshi Nakamoto, and I don't personally believe it's just one person. Yeah, that's why I too believe when Brad Garlinghouse said multiple early on engineers from Bitcoin came to create XRP to solve those problems.
Yeah.
I personally believe Bitcoin was the beta test coin, BTC, beta test coin.
Yeah. Smart. That's
And
smart.
those engineers, after they created it, it had a momentum that started going, and they let it go. Now, the conspiracy level in me starts to think, hey, did the NSA actually create Bitcoin here to get us behind this, whole this whole cryptocurrency system, so they could then introduce their next better improved solution, XRP, XLM, similar technologies, with in mind the introduction of a new, better financial system in the future. At the time of release of Bitcoin, maybe they didn't have the solution to that at that point, but they found the best engineers to then go and create that better solution.
Now,
I believe that's XRP and XLM.
I want to interrupt you right there, because you just hit a nerve when you said you hit a nerve, and a really good nerve, because what you just said, beta test coin, certain things you just said, it gets your mind wondering, because there's conspiracies, and then Joel, something you're probably really good at, and then there's connecting the dots. And it's like, when you start connecting the dots, you sit back and go, oh my gosh, because if, let's just say, and again, this is not financial advice, this is not saying we know anything, just giving our 2 Satoshis, if you will, our 2 cents. But at the end of the day, when you look at what you just said, beta test coin, something that was created to be better than, you don't think the SEC and the government have really smart people that know exactly what you said? And if that, let's just say, for whatever reason, that was true,
right,
that warrants why you go after XRP and Ripple. I'm just saying. I mean, literally. So it's like, we could say conspiracy, but when you start looking at, Joe Katz's roadmap, it just that's one hell of a coincidence. I'm just saying, that's one hell of a coincidence when you look at all that.
It's a hell of a coincidence, and it's speculative. Then you start looking at the SEC lawsuit, and you're like, okay, well, say you need to get the entire financial system behind this new distributed ledger technology.
Right.
How do you transition an entire world economy behind to change? You can't do that overnight, right? That takes time. But you need to also have some sort of system that puts a delay and brakes, because we know governments and large financial institutions move slower than molasses.
Yep.
So you need something to regulate the adoption and integration of any new technology, whether it's planned or not.
Right.
And I see the SEC lawsuit was and enacted in that regard. Now, there were some big players out there that were trying to get their coins to actually be a part of it. You had JP Morgan with the Onyx coin. You had various other banks were competing. You had Ethereum too, was competing against Ripple, and a lot of these CBDC tests did not perform as well compared to XRP, hands down and across the board. But what I'm saying is, it's kind of strange too, though, that what sold it to me, and what really had me pull the trigger, when I found out it was about 2019, 2020, Steve Alderati.
I think we lost. Did we lose Joel? Are you there, Joel?
Are you there?
Okay, there you go.
Yeah. There for a second. I don't know when
you froze about maybe 30 seconds ago.
Okay. I was saying what got it for me was in 2019 or 2020 when Steve Alderati was being interviewed, and he said, hey, the SEC has a node. The XRP ledger is a permissionless ledger, and the SEC is establishing their own node on the XRP ledger. And then the SEC goes to implicate Ripple for selling non-registered securities for a system that they are validating themselves. They implicated themselves in this entire and anyone who's watched Gary Gensler, you see he flip-flops on everything, but they themselves do not seem to be very thoughtful and think about their steps before they move.
Yeah.
So when I saw that fact, I was like, there's no way they can declare it a security, because the implications would come back and bite them in the butt. This seems like a way to delay the system from fully adopting Ripple and everything else. Also deter retail investors. Now, this is all speculation. This is the conclusions I came to. And what really drove me into just buying, and continue to invest in this technology.
But Joel, it just makes sense. What you're saying, like, there's again conspiracies and connecting dots, because like you said, I'm there's a time that I know you've been around long enough. You saw XRP at number 2. It was Bitcoin. It was XRP. They knew exactly what they were doing. And like you said, if you know what you know, or what my friend Eck always says, know what you hold, then at the end of the day, it's not about what's right and wrong. It's about, we have a system that could create chaos by tying this up and throwing all kinds of stones at this company. And what you're going to do is, if I can create enough doubt and confusion for the retail to kind of keep them, I mean, because you think about it, if you look at, there's some brilliant people in the space. I've got to say, there's some brilliant people. Like when I went to XRP Las Vegas, even in our, in the XRP community, there are some brilliant. Can you imagine all throughout crypto, brilliant people? Yet the government has created enough chaos and FUD where the majority of those brilliant people won't even mess with XRP and Ripple. They've caused that much chaos and confusion and doubt. Can you imagine if it wasn't that case, if it was never a lawsuit, if XRP was sitting around $7 or $8 right now? Could you imagine? Gosh. We're talking about something totally different here.
100%. 100%. Yeah. Even just the renaming within Ripple, like they had Ripple ODL. It's now Ripple Payments.
Yep.
They still have the technology. They've labeled it as AMM, automatic market makers, for providing liquidity pools for the financial system. You almost whether or not, it depends on your perspective, whether or not you believe that if this is all a plan and the government has to slowly move us towards, the end destination, they almost have to create the problem in order to then justify the new solution.
Yeah.
We have a banking crisis right now. You have banks with liquidity problems. You have, they're extremely over leveraged. You have, Japan right now, the yen is failing compared to the US dollar. The US dollar looks extremely strong, but you have economies that are failing. You have even BRICS too. You have a change in the old world reserve system of the US petrodollar. Some may speculate that the Ukrainian-Russian war was just a justification to put sanctions on Russia so that it would push Russia to de-dollarize. And that's exactly what they did. Who did they go find? China, India, some of these other big names, Brazil. And now you have a lot of the Middle Eastern countries who've joined in. They're beginning to trade outside the U.S. petrodollar.
That's right.
Which, added a lot of strength here to the U.S. But, if per se it is a plan, these would be calculated steps and then helping create a problem to then justify the new solution.
That's right.
At some point in the future.
So it's so funny that's what Operation Shutdown just put here in the stream.
Yeah. Nice.
And it's that old saying I heard a long time ago in business: is SW next. Some will, some won't. So what next? They don't care who make it. I mean, they obviously they don't want the masses to be in it, but they don't care if you win or if this is about something for your family. It has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with us. And they've made that very evident, where then you go and you look at countries like El Salvador and what their president's trying to do for the people and making sure that the people are in front of this technology, not behind it. And so it's definitely, let's move the conversation to a different area for Wisham Productions. Chris and Maya are really good friends of mine. I've pretty much adopted them. We got connected early on as I had them on the show. And because of that connection, I've had Stephen Neroff and some of the biggest names in this space. I was able to hang out with them here at XRP Las Vegas, in which I'm very honored that they did about a 35 to 45 minute interview. So they're adding me to the documentary. I'm really excited about that. Nice. Actually, went on right before Joe Cat, so that was kind of cool. But awesome. Yeah. But, I say that to say that, these guys got into crypto. They were sick and tired of being sick and tired. I know their story even more so because we've got, personal as far as knowing why they got into crypto. But they were just tired of, the 9 to 5. Chris had a great job at Google, didn't see a 30-year plan, didn't see where it was going. So they found Crypto specifically, they got into meme coins when it was that time. I can't say, the time that they got into Doge was that time. The time that they jumped from Doge to Shiba was that time. They created millions of dollars and then got into more utility ISO coins, which is, obviously XRP, they're real big. And so they made a decision, instead of sitting in the shadows, to bring this truth to the forefront. XRP Unleash, ETHGate. And they're getting a lot of ridicule for it. They're getting a lot of support for it. Obviously, the good comes with the bad, or the bad comes with the good. But at the end of the day, what they're creating, to me, will be the greatest, up to this point, the greatest documentary I've ever seen when it comes to this space. And they're doing it first class. They spent all their own money. They got some of the biggest names. They just went down and got an approval for Ripple, where they had Joe Katz on, obviously John Deet and many others that are in this video. And it's just so amazing. So I want to get your thoughts on, what do you think this means to not only the XRP armor, but to crypto as a whole? And then what do you think it means to what will it do in your opinion as this thing gets out there? Because right now I'm actually working with them through I used to play ball and I got some celebrity friends. So I'm working with them to try to get this on Netflix and other things right now. So what do you think that'll mean if it gets on a platform like a Netflix to the space as a whole?
Yes, I'm a big fan of documentaries myself. I watched the trailer. I think the truth just needs to be kind of revealed and shared with people. At the end of the day, the more, a documentary like this would be huge for revealing that truth. The more we speak up here on platforms like X, or other platforms where we don't necessarily have that same censorship and everything, that, light shines in the darkness. So does the truth, And I think it'll help people in the long run. Hopefully, before it is too late. But you're right. You touched on a couple different things. The SEC lawsuit. You talked about ETHGate and kind of this free pass that Ethereum got.
Yeah.
Declared they had an ICO, and yet we're still declared non-security status by Bill Hinman, and he was paid millions of dollars, and then even after that, continued to pay millions of dollars. Trying to remember the name of that foundation.
The $15 million check.
Yes. So the corruption is just blatant there. The fact too that you had this Wells notice on consensus, MetaMask, and whether ETH is a security, and Gary flip-flopping, March 2023, I thought it was a security. Yet, every time he's interviewed on TV, he's unable to answer the question, for goodness sakes. But for him to have such, determined conclusion that XRP was a security, without the legal foundation behind it, really, the whole thing, and that's what I go back to. It's like, hey, I think exposing those truths is important. I think this is an incredible documentary to do it. I'm pretty excited to watch the whole documentary when it does come out. It's
going to be amazing. I agree with you wholeheartedly. Let's get into the next question here, which is, you brought up a point. You said for so long we saw him in congressional hearings just acting as if he knew nothing. And then we're talking about over the last year. Now all of a sudden it's coming out that he knew all the way back a year ago when he was just being quiet and he was just being ignorant to the fact of what it was. He wouldn't make a comment. But all of a sudden, here goes my question. Why now? Why now, Joe? Why come out now and say after, did you let the monster get too big? Did you give everybody opportunity to make all the money they can make, including people from a political standpoint, which we'll never know, because guess what? They threw the whole case out about where the stolen money from Sam Bankman-Fried went to politicians. But yet, hold on, wait a minute. What's important is let's get Kim Kardashian for being a part of ETHMax. It's just funny. It's funny how they pick and choose their battles. And so again, my question is, why now? And before you answer that, is it because I think, is it a false sense of justice? Is there some type of agenda? Is it because they want to make it seem like they're going after Ethereum? Maybe the time has passed as far as the statute of limitations in regards to that, or is it because they want to give some kind of falsified sense of justice to the people so they can hear up and push out Ethereum ETF. I'm just confused. What is your thoughts on that? Yeah,
it's a great question. I've been trying to figure out what the heck the SEC has been doing for years now. I almost wonder too if they're trying to backtrack and kind of establish some sort of legality behind it. Whether or not that goes anywhere, I have no idea. If I were to speculate, I don't see Ethereum being declared a security. Now, I could be 100% wrong on that. I'm no financial advisor, like I said. At the end of the day, you're right. It is very strange. They've gone out of after a lot of crypto institutions within the last year or so, even since the Ripple case. Consensus, I named one with the Wells notice. Consensus, I believe, ended up suing the SEC before the SEC started a lawsuit with them.
Right.
You had Robinhood just recently got a Wells notice from the SEC. It seems like, and then in the midst of it, you had several SEC lawyers recently step down over corrupt dealings within court. And so, doesn't bode well here for the SEC. They seem to be all over the playing field. They don't seem to have a sense of direction. Maybe that's a part of the point. Maybe they want to create so much confusion in this space that it justifies, most retail investors or maybe even financial investors right now from even considering getting in the crypto space. I understand we have the Bitcoin ETFs. That's provided an investment vehicle for financial institutions or, people who'd like to invest outside of, who may not know anything about getting into crypto, but they can go into their, investment broker and be able to buy some, Bitcoin ETF, those kinds of things. I don't know if I have the whole picture behind here, but it seems like at the end of the day, they've created more confusion. They say they're for the people. They say they're for regulation, but at the end of the day, I don't see a consistency. I don't see a guidebook by which they're trying to, in a way, deteriorate the guidebook. That's and right. Just go after every which player they feel they can. It's pretty fascinating just to see what they're doing right now in this space.
I agree with you. And, can you imagine being a young lawyer who just got out of law school and you're like, justice and I want to do what's right. And then you go get a job at the SEC just to have judges and the judicial system say that they're unethical and things you're lying. And can you imagine, because a lot of people are like, why did these guys walk away? Well, hey, I don't want to taint my reputation because I've heard of these lawyers leaving and going on to do great things outside the SEC. So I think, it's a telltale to me of why these guys left, why you see even people in the SEC kind of speaking against what Gary Gensler's doing. Like, Hester, I can't think of the lady's name right now, but that they're literally like, this is not right. Like this shouldn't have gone the way it's gone. So when you got confusion in your system, obviously I believe that Gary Gensler, in my opinion, just my opinion here, I believe he's a 2024 version of Pinocchio. I think Elizabeth Warren's a puppet master, and I just think that's exactly what we're seeing here. But at the end of the day, I do have hope. Now, with that being said, guys, I want to break away real quick and say thank you so much for the over 700 people that are watching live on X and on YouTube. We appreciate you guys in a major way. I'm going to actually ask you guys to do me a huge personal favor. I want you to go over to X, formerly known as Twitter, and go over and follow my friend, Joel Nelson. It's the Nelson Way, at the Nelson Way, right there on X. Make sure you give him a follow. He's absolutely brilliant. And now
the J Nelson Way. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, the
J kind of gets hidden in there. The J Nelson.
The J Nelson Way. Now I have a question. What is soldwithsage.com? What is that?
That's my real estate company too.
Oh, okay.
So if people are looking for a discounted real estate option at the end of the day, I know there's a million ways you can do real estate, but I provide that link, for people to go check it out. And I'm there to be an advocate for both the buyers and the sellers at the end of the day, and put more money in people's pocket. the true buyers and the sellers of real estate. So
now I want to ask you this: the excitement surrounding, one day where this will be normal, where people can take their digital assets and go and call up a Joel and say, "Hey, Joel, I want to buy a home," or with my crypto assets. Does that excite you?
Oh, 100%, 100%. The whole distributed ledger technology, even tokenization too, I think could totally reinvent the whole real estate transaction space. You may not even need realtors in the future. Hey,
Right.
my Sold with Sage may not even, provide value, but as a businessman, as an entrepreneur, you evolve with the times.
Yeah.
I'm just excited about getting behind a lot of these cool technologies that are making life more efficient, help saving people money at the end of the day, and efficiency and great ideas do both those things. They provide an incredible product, allows people to hold on to their hard-earned cash at the end of the day, so we can keep up with inflation and everything else, like I had stated earlier. But also provides a more efficient system at the end of the day for designating ownership and also transferring of assets. So
well, I don't want to be biased here. I'm very well diversified. XRP is one of my biggest holdings. Obviously, I have, like you, many other assets. But I do have to say, and again, guys, I apologize if I seem biased, but that might be one of the coolest doggone moons I've ever seen ever. That XRP moon back there, that Ripple moon, that's just too cool. I like that. I'm gonna have to, check that out. So, guys, also do me a huge personal favor. We have some incredible guests coming up on the show. I want to make sure that I bring some attention to that real quick before we move forward. If you guys get a chance, we have, let me see if I can actually refresh this. We have the one and only, let's see here, where are we at? There we go. We have the one and only Linda P. Jones that'll be on the show, guys. We're going to be setting it up for next week. Linda P. Jones will be coming on the show. And then tomorrow, if you guys get a chance, we have Ray Fuentes coming on. Was able to hang out with Ray, so he's going to be coming on. Plus, we've got some really big names that are coming up as well, guys. Quincy from XDC Foundation is going to be on. We're working on John Deaton. We're working on a few others, guys, some real big names. So definitely appreciate that. And do me a huge personal favor, if you guys don't mind, go over to our Crypto4Life channel. Make sure you hit the like, subscribe, and notification bell so you guys don't miss any of the incredible information, including this amazing interview with my friend Joel Nelson. So definitely appreciate him in a major way. Let's get on to I want to talk about your let me see here, kind of got some things going on. The SEC with this ridiculous asking price of $2 billion. Now, I have my thoughts on why they did that. I think it's ridiculous. Obviously, they're trying to shoot for the moon to get what they really want, but I want to get your take on what you think their strategy is for asking for such an astronomical amount of money, especially when you've fraudulently cost this company $100 to $200 million in almost 4 years of a lawsuit. Your thoughts?
100%. I agree with that statement. $2 billion seems absolutely ridiculous. Like, you look in the past, like JP Morgan, for example, was fined $920 million for manipulating the precious metals markets. That's half for corrupt dealings. They also, too, they recently got a $350 million fine for not keeping up proper trade bookkeeping.
Yep.
It just seems astronomical. I wonder if they want a piece of the pie. I was even wondering if the SEC was going to ask for their payment in XRP.
You're not the first guy who said that. You're not the first person who said that.
Imagine how bullish the rest of us would have been. Oh my gosh.
But could you imagine, not to cut you off, I don't want you to keep your thought. Could you imagine if they got, let's say the judge says, okay, 50 million in XRP, and to know where that could potentially go? Could you imagine? Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Maybe they have. I don't know. Maybe that's part of their settlement discussions that they're going through right now. I don't know. It's fascinating. It seems like they wanted to come in as this bully and somebody who's like not going to step down. Now, Ripple held their ground. To come back with a $10 million counter is they're not messing around. They've been pretty serious this entire time.
Right.
They've invested, like you said, hundreds of millions of dollars in this lawsuit. They're in it for the legal clarity at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I respect them highly for that
That's
investment.
Right. That's right.
I wonder too if the fine is so high because the SEC knows that the future value of this company is astronomical, and the utility will drive that price as well.
Yeah,
All these things are speculative, but yeah, it's fascinating. It blows my mind that they would even propose something like that, especially given the other fraudulent charges that they have given the banking system for much worse fraudulent actions. And Ripple has done nothing wrong. They even, prior to the SEC lawsuit, was meeting with the SEC on multiple accounts to ensure that they were fully compliant. So it's laughable at best. We'll see where it ends up. Where would you ballpark? Where do you think they settle?
Well. Here's the thing. I was at XRP Las Vegas this last week and this weekend, and they had my friend who was on the show here last week, I believe, Metal Law Man, which is James. They had John Deaton on. They had Stuart Alderete, not Stuart Alderete. They had the gentleman, I can't think of his name right now, younger guy on, and he is drawing a blank right now. But they had like 3 or 4 lawyers on the stage, and they were talking about price. And what John Deaton said is he saw somewhere around 25 million. And then there's Jeremy Hogan. Jeremy Hogan says he feels based off of what it was what they've been charged with, if they hurt institutions in any way. Well, it was found they didn't. So he says, I feel they're going to get 0. However, he says, I feel that the penalties could be somewhere up around 100 million. He said possibly, but so, and then I think some others said maybe 10 million, maybe 25, somewhere in there. So I think there's these different, and it really comes down to, I think, what the judge sees in its entirety as far as does she equate the fact that they spent over 100-something million? Can they show receipts? Like, this is ridiculous. Like, we're not guilty. I mean, what happens when you throw a guy in prison? We've seen some of these stories. They've been in there for 30 years. They give him $5 or $6 million. Like, that really helps, 30 years of your life. But what do you do when a company spent over $100 million for nothing? Does that factor into the equation? Do they get like a either a discount or maybe a refund, or is it just kind of like or is it just like a wash, right? So I guess it comes down to what type of justice do we see? Is it what's in the best interest of the SEC because look, them losing is not new. That happens more often than not. People don't realize that. So, but it's something that my friend Molly said, Molly Elmore, who comes on our show, and she's been on our show, and she'll be on this Friday with Ladies Night with a amazing lineup of women guests. But she said in this country, it's like the mafia. It's like the mob where she says she feels, in her opinion, this is only about if you want to play, you're going to pay. And if you think about it, if you go back and you think about, let's say, Amazon, they had to pay to play. They got sued, and it was after the lawsuit was settled that they exploded. Another person that went through that, and he was very emotional before he even bought. Or maybe he had already bought X, but he hadn't changed it. It was still called Twitter, and that's Elon Musk. He got on, and this video's probably somewhere. You can probably Google it, or not Google, but you can probably go on Twitter and find it, where he said he was emotional. He was literally emotional. He says it broke it. Like, he says, I'm so angry because I knew we didn't do anything wrong, but they basically blackmailed him to accept a settlement, or he would lose his baby.
Right.
I mean, is that how we do business in America? Where you walk in, Brad said he walked in without any lawyers because he's like, hey, I'm gonna just be forthcoming. Or that Brian Armstrong from Coinbase says, well, I reached out 30 times and finally had to file a lawsuit to get their attention. So it's like, what system do we live in, man? This is not about helping. And then, you look at the fact that at one point, the SEC was actually a revered, body, right? And at one point, we were known for our innovation and just, being ahead of the game. And now we're like the laughing stock of the world and what the SEC is doing. So just some comments on that, if you don't mind.
Yeah, 100%. If I were to give my speculation, I'd say probably about, $30 million is where we'll probably end up. We'll see. I'm just ballparking things.
Yeah.
I'm guessing they'll probably meet somewhere in the middle, but you're right. There was a huge financial load. It just is really sad. A country that was founded by our founding fathers for the people, by the people, for inalienable rights, where, the representatives within government are supposed to be there to represent the people in the best interest of humanity.
That's right.
For the citizens of this country. And it's really sad just over the last, several years, decade plus. The corruption's probably always been there. I think it's just been more in your face. It's really sad. You got to play by their rules in order to, continue forward, in order to, it's a crazy, sad reality. It's, the world we all grew up in. I'm hopeful for my kids. I want to instill hope for them too. But, the way things have turned in this world, it's just really sad to see the country that the U.S. is becoming.
Yeah, it's funny because I talk, a lot of times when we talk to people about our kids, and I say, I'm just so happy that I'm not raising kids in this day. And it just this time, where there was a time they could go out and play, they could do this, they could do that. Just such a scary time in this world.
Right.
But yeah, you talked about 30 million. It's so funny. I remember last year, XRP Las Vegas, right around that time, Stuart Alderete came out and said that he goes, look, if they want, I think at one point it was like 750 million they were talking about in Prometic sales or something like that. He's like, look, if they want, he said, I talked to Brad. Brad said he'll cut a check, but they're going to drop this whole thing about BS. And I think what it is, I say that to say this, the SEC waited so long that now they're coming down to, they may get 30, they may get 10. And if you keep, because what we didn't have back then when Stuart Alderete said that is we didn't have a ruling by Judge Annalisa Torres, July 13th, 2023, that we weren't a security. So it's like the more that time passes on, now you got the judicial system and people like Judge Netmore saying, oh, they're unethical, they're liars. And it's like the longer they wait, it's like, I don't know if it's about the money. I think it might be about just kind of keeping the chaos as long as they can. And who's to say how many bags they don't have packed up with XRP and Ethereum? Anyways, that's right.
Especially as a node validator, it's like, come on, guys.
I remember when I heard that, I was like, huh? Yeah, that was.
Let's not forget that. It's like, hey, it's good to expose those things. It's like, this is crazy. This is a clown world we live in at times.
Exactly. It's a little things like that, or the connection between the Bankman-Frieds and the SEC. It's like little things that we just don't pay attention to. Like, huh? What happened? Is that why?
Right. Yeah. Makes you think,
makes you think. So we're going to go into something. We're going to have a little fun here because, again, I want everybody to understand this. Nor my friend Joel is a financial advisor. We don't pretend to be one. We're not one today. We won't be one tomorrow. But we're going to have a little fun with saying, where do you see XRP in the short term versus the long term, and why?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think, the regulation will drive adoption. Adoption will drive the utility, and the utility will drive price.
That's right.
Coming here in June, we have MICA, stablecoin regulation. Ripple recently announced that they're going to be creating a regulation-compliant stablecoin to compete with Tether, to compete against USDC. There are reports that even USDC may not even be currently compliant. We all know, too, that USDT has not been very transparent with their reserves. They even had, I'm trying to remember who I was listening to, but one of their, I don't know if it was one of their executives at one of these conferences was saying that they're looking to move out of the European and U.S. markets from a USDT standpoint, and they're looking to focus more on Africa and some of these other countries because regulation's coming. Where the SEC and has created a lot of confusion in this space. Regulation will be the ultimate kind of leveling playing field at the end of the day.
That's right.
And you're starting to see investment vehicles like ETFs being created for Bitcoin. We'll see if one's created for Ethereum, some of these other coins as well. But I'm under the belief that we won't see large financial adoption nor the true regulation put in place until the system's ready to flip that switch, ready to go forward. And then we'll see huge piling of utility and adoption here for this coin. And
look, Jay, I don't mean to cut you off, but that's so confusing because, and I want you to touch on this. You got a company, companies plural, but we're going to talk about Ripple, that came to the SEC and opened the books up. Then you got a company that you just named, which is Tether, that every time they've been asked to show their books or an audit, they've actually paid to not have that happen. And that's a fact that they have not been fully audited, period. And yet they've been left alone to do all these things, because a lot of people attribute that 2021 pump to 68,000 from Tether money printing. And then you kind of, and again, we can go back to that old childhood game. Let's connect the dots, because if you start connecting dots and you go back to this whole thing that happened in China, which they're calling the biggest scandal of a lot. I mean, bigger than Enron, bigger than FTX, and it has to do with this company called Evergrande. And guess who's tied up real tight with that investment in the hundreds of millions, and that is USDT. So now they're talking about these stablecoin regulations, and we found that, which was a shocker for me as I read it, because I'm like you, I like information, that even maybe Tether, I'm not even maybe USDC may not be fully compliant, but yet you look at this company that has done everything by the book. And the one thing that has been said from their side is, we will be fully compliant when these regulations come out. And it just makes you wonder, it makes you just kind of think, and appreciate being a part of the system. But then it's so funny to me, and I want you to answer that, but why is it that so many people are frustrated? And I know the answer to it. Oh, market cap, and look, it wasn't created for us. You're not getting it. Like, yes, we're playing follow the leader, but there's a time that we will detach ourselves from the rest of the market, I believe, when that utility is embraced. So I know there's several questions, there are several statements. Go ahead and take it away with that.
A lot of good questions there. There's speculation within the crypto industry that when regulation comes in, that you'll have a huge detethering of the crypto space.
Right.
Now, what does that do to the Bitcoins, which you had mentioned a little bit earlier, the Ponzi scheme? Tether prints out of thin air USDT, they then pump it into Bitcoin, they then sell off at a profit. And then they use those return funds as justifications for the printing. Yep. That's a Ponzi by pure definition. In a speculative asset that can be driven by liquidity injected into the markets, what does that happen to the price of, say, Bitcoin, that is highly manipulated by the big whales, the big players, and Tether's one of them. What happens at that point? Do we see then a lot of that value leave Bitcoin going to some of these other coins? It's fascinating, though. You're right. You made a point. Even in the midst of a lawsuit, you have Ripple meeting with, there was a picture I saw recently of a round table discussion. You had Stellar and Ripple at the table with some decision makers from the Treasury. And you're just like, okay, these guys are in. They got their connections. They're having the discussions. They're playing the long game, but they've got the ear of the decision makers at the end of the day. They're working to be compliant. They're building this system. It may take a year, it may take several years, but I feel a lot of investors on the frustration behind the price, its current price at around 50 something cents. Yes, it's like, that the immense value that this company and that XRP and these other assets, XLM, these ISO coins will have in the near future. But in the meantime, they're just being blown with the wind by the price manipulation of the speculative crypto markets.
Yeah.
And so that is extremely frustrating. And what I do know is that a lot of these financial institutions are incredibly good at playing psychological warfare with investors.
Yeah,
they hire psychologists on their trading floors. How do we beat the retail investors? How do we win on Wall Street? How do we get these guys to give up? And then they come pay us as financial advisors to invest their money at the end of the day. These guys are incredibly good at what they do, and they are studying. They're playing 3D chess. We made the comment. It's like, hey, these ISO coins, XRP, XLM, XDC, Quant, to name a few, right? Like, they are not necessarily designed for the retail investor. They stand out from the rest of the crypto, which is, primarily speculative.
That's right.
And so, they're playing in this weird cesspool of speculative manipulated assets. And someday, though, they will shine and they will grow. We saw it like 2017, like you said, XRP went up to #2 spot. It bypassed Ethereum right before the lawsuit. It's like, hey, this it's fascinating. Patience pays the dividends. That's my key term. It's like, hey, no. Who's the guy who says know your hold? I'm forgetting his name. I love.
Oh yeah. Echo. Yeah.
Echo. He's great. Know what you hold, guys.
Know what you hold. That's right.
This is not financial advice. I'm no financial advisor. Do your own research. But
that's right.
The more you jump into it, you'd be surprised how bullish you become on some of these coins.
That's right, Jay. I want you to hear something real quick that I watched I think earlier today, and it says a lot. I want you to hear this real quick.
The big question in crypto land right now is Ethereum a commodity or is Ethereum a security, and therefore will there one day be an ETF? That's the fundamental question on the table in crypto land. You agree?
Oh, you're the one that's out there asking the questions. All I would say is, to me, the fundamental question is how do we ensure that the American investor is protected? And right now, they're not getting the required or needed disclosures. And the intermediaries in the center of this rather centralized market generally are conflicted and doing things we would never allow the New York Stock Exchange to do. The New York Stock Exchange is not allowed to trade against the investors.
Okay, but let me ask you about
now that part that he just said right there, because there's more to it that I'll play, but that part that he said, the New York Stock Exchange is not allowed to trade against investors, but in all actuality, it's been caught on both sides, where a lot of these institutions have been caught and have been penalized in the millions for it was like 3-point-something billion that they got caught trading against, and then they were fined like 200-something million. And then the same thing has been accused of some of these exchanges that were trading FTX and others, where they were trading against. They could actually see your trades. And so, this is a kind of crap and chaos that we're dealing with. I'll finish playing this. It's like I think like a minute long or something.
About this. You've seen the consensus lawsuit, and I know you have a Wells notice with them as well. This is Patrick Henry saying the following, and I want you to respond to it. Just months after a federal judge sanctioned SEC enforcement lawyers for lying in court, new evidence shows that Chair Gary Gensler himself misled Congress. The testimony to the Financial Services Committee last April, Chair Gensler refused to answer questions about the SEC's classification of Ether, and new court filings show this was an intentional attempt to misrepresent the commission's position.
That's right.
We speak to Congress directly in hearings like that, and also directly to members, and we share with them accurately what we're doing, so that the viewers can also understand we don't speak about whether we have an investigation or whether we don't have an investigation, and we don't speak about whether somebody is, in our opinion, not following the law unless we actually bring a case. So we stay quiet on many questions that you.
I'm done with that one. It's hard for me to even look at them. But to me, it comes down to you have an excuse for everything, and then there's this gray area where you're allowed not to answer questions and lie, predicated off of what you believe is it's just, what do you make of that, man? I don't even know what to say. It's hard to do.
He's kind of backed himself into a corner where he wants to provide insight on, be for the investor and providing clarity and direction. This is a security, this is not a security. But then he also knows that he does not have ground to even provide that justification or any basis for making that decision. And he doesn't want to implicate himself too and have any evidence that holds him accountable at the end of the day. It's a weird place for him that he's put himself in. It's pretty fascinating.
Yeah.
You had brought up some interesting information too. Talking about market makers and other financial institutions.
Yeah.
Who's a guy from Citadel who said that the retail investor thinks they can just drive price by buying stocks.
Right.
And I'm paraphrasing here. He's like, markets are most efficient when we determine what price an asset should be, and then we drive the market to it.
That's right.
It's like, hey, the market's not for you guys. We're here to steal your money. is kind of, what the inference I'm pulling from that at the end of the day.
No, you're right.
You have the guys behind AMC, GME, the entire scandal with Robinhood years ago, the continued illegal short selling, dark pool markets that these financial institutions use to manipulate, get the upper hand and advantage to drive the markets so they continue to make money, even with what, a slap on the hand fine at the end of the day.
At best, yeah, at best.
It's a dog eat dog world out there, and Wall Street's got some big dogs.
Yeah.
So I'm here for the underdog. I'm here for the investor. I'm one of them myself. I want justice in all these different areas.
Yeah.
It's really cool actually to see Taiwan is establishing an illegal short selling investigative committee here, and they've already caught, I think, like 50 banks with illegal short selling here in the recent future.
Yeah.
So it's cool to see some I don't know if you can call it accountability, but at least some transparency behind the corruption.
Yeah. Here in the U.S., it happens, but they talk about it like the weatherman. It's like, hey, there's going to be some fog today. And further in the news, it's like, what? Like, wait, what? They stole billions and got fined $200 million. Like, it happens all the short selling. There was a big old thing that came out, and they just moved on past like everything else here in the United States.
Yeah.
No, but what I want to do, I know we're just over now. We got just over 900 people that are watching on X and on YouTube. I'm gonna hit you with a couple more questions. I'm gonna cut it a little short. Two big ones that I want to ask is, where do you see crypto in the next 5 years, based off of your own personal views? But you have some people out there like Michael Saylor, Kathy Woods, ARK Investment. Her. At one point, she was saying 1.4. She went to 1.6. Now she's saying 3 point something, by 2030, which is the next 5.5 years, based off a certain amount of money coming in. You see Michael Saylor doing some crazy numbers. Where do you see, not Bitcoin, but the industry in the next 5 years?
Great question. Brad Garlinghouse, I think, had mentioned something like 5 trillion by the end of the year or something.
And then he said he might have fell short on that.
He short sold himself on that. My personal thing, and this is my opinion, I'm not a financial advisor. Do your own research at the end of the day. I invested in utility and ISO coins because there's an actual utility that will drive price at the end of the day.
That's right.
The institutional adoption and the utility value, the value of transferring money, on a global scale, solving worldwide problems. Like, that's where I'm focused. We're talking, what is it? Swift deals with $5 trillion of value a day. That's insane. So we're talking major money here going to be flowing into these utility coins. What does that do to the rest of crypto market? It's a great question. Does it take those speculative assets, and a lot of that value then goes into these utility-driven coins because people get the FOMO saying, hey, I missed the boat. Or they see, hey, there's future price growth based on the utility here for these coins. I'm focused on those utility-based ISO coins because I see that utility will drive price in the future. I know VTHO Advisors, they put together a study of various financial models. That ranged anywhere between 1,000 and 500,000 for XRP, with a median around 12K. I would be very happy with a $12,000 XRP. I tell you, most XRP investors would be as well. Does that happen? When does that happen? That's the thing. It's like, hey, it takes time to build out that infrastructure, to build on that utility and everything else. A lot of other crypto influencers out there will make the justification, hey, market cap, you can't beat Bitcoin's market cap at the end of the day. And I'm like, here's where I argue at the end of the day is that you have a speculative asset that then holds a certain market cap. But then look at stocks, for example, or companies, for example, that provide a lot of value. They may be trading on multiples of that, of their actual generated revenue and profits here at the end of the day. You have PE ratios and those kinds of things. we're talking trillions and in tens of trillions of dollars pouring into these markets here. It's just a matter of time. What slice of the pie does each of these coins get? That is the ultimate question.
That's the question.
I go back and forth. Does one coin win them all, or do they diversify? The way that I see the world works is they like to have multiple channels and rails by which they transfer value. If one fails, for any reason needs maintenance and everything else, they can then transfer that value on these other rails. So, is one going to win the entire pie? Maybe. Right. I wish I could predict the future, but that's why, I've diversified into a lot of different ISO various coins.
That's right.
I'm invested in gold and silver right now. You see the banking system has Basel III endgame. I'm not going to tell you what to invest in. I'm just sharing, what I've kind of learned on my journey of investigation. That's right. A lot of these central banks are requiring a lot of their actual reserves to be held in physical assets like gold, silver, and other various assets. Basel III endgame, that's coming sometime, I believe, end of next year. You have full enforcement for that. You see BRICS is looking to make their own cryptocurrencies. Russia tested XRP for its CBDC. It's been a major driver behind the BRICS system, but they're looking to actually back a lot of their assets with physical, tangible assets. It's kind of cool to see the fiat world being transformed in a way where it's like we're going back pre-1970s where we left the gold standard. I think, in a system like we were talking about where this fiat dollar is, in a way, you can be printed out of existence.
That's right.
You have banks that are loaning out on fractional reserve, and a fiat system. You run into money supply problems at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And so, having that tangible backing, I think, will reinstill confidence in the financial system for adoption here. And we're already seeing it. Banks are over leveraged. They have liquidity problems. They need some physical grounding. A house, built on sand is going to fall, but you build that house on rock, it'll stand forever. So
that's right. That's right. Yeah, I love it. Yeah, great answer, and definitely love your view on that. I've got a few of them here, but I'm just going to pick one, and that is your thoughts on CBDCs, good or bad?
Great question. When I think CBDCs, I think of two different levels. There's the wholesale side. That is kind of that's where XRP has been kind of mostly focused on this cross-border platform.
Right.
The idea of central banks having their own CBDC that is kind of for the transfer of large value and real-time settlement. Something, where right now they're having, nostro vostro accounts that take some counterparty risks for banks in the exchanging of currencies from one bank to the next. With XRP and other distributed ledger technologies, you literally can take the Chinese yen and the US dollar, you convert the yen into XRP, send it. Within 3 seconds, it's on the other end of the world, and that value ends up showing up there along with your ISO message, and then it's converted right back into that other currency at the end of the day.
Yeah.
That wholesale CBDC is kind of like the Venmo for the banking system. Instead of actually shipping physical cash, which has a lot of time friction, you can get it there almost instantaneously, and it removes that counterparty risk. An asset that is, over 3 seconds, you have very, very low volatility in price.
Right.
And so the banks actually, I think, you'll see a lot of improvement in their potential profits just because there's a lot of risk and losses just in the transferring and flow of money. So that's wholesale. I see there's a lot of value in the wholesale side. Our own country has kind of also pursued the retail side of things, and a lot of countries are pursuing that CBDC system. Biden put in an executive order in 2022. 14067, I believe, is the executive order. And he wanted the federal bank and our country to investigate and start pursuing the building of a central bank digital currency from a retail standpoint. Now, I see Ripple is going after both sides these days. The fact that they're creating their stable coin, but also have their incredible asset XRP.
Right.
I believe XRP can be more focused on that cross-border, country-to-country transaction, that wholesale CBDC side, whereas the stable coin would be more of that retail CBDC. There's a lot of value in instantaneous transactions.
Yeah.
There are some questionable aspects in the CBDC as well. Where they can provide a lot of value, where I shared, in an instantaneous world, having instantaneous cash and the flow of value is incredible. On the underside of that, the CBDCs come with a programmability to your money. What that means is, if falling in the wrong hands, the government or whatever ruling organization could put a stop to your money and in a way make your money worthless. Yep. Some CBDCs that are being tested right now also come with a expiration date. Jeez. And so, those who are trying to save up for a house or, that takes time. You have to take your hard-earned cash. You have to cover your current liabilities, your daily lifestyle, right, first. But, whatever's left, you then are saving to invest in other assets that hopefully are then bringing you money. So your money's doing work for you. But
that's right.
There's an expiration date on that cash. It makes it much harder for, the working class or, you and me, whoever it is, any citizen that has to transact in these currencies. It makes it much harder for them to actually save up and be able to afford these various assets.
Yeah.
So, on one hand, there's a lot of benefit that comes from CBDCs, but, in the wrong hands, these things can actually be an enslaving system.
Yep.
Even more so than the current system that we have. So, I try to hold that tension, right? I see the value on one hand. I'm investing in technologies behind the central bank digital currencies. But I also do so with caution because I know, there are implications behind these new technologies.
Yeah. That's not a system that's set up for people to win by no means. I'm not saying that CBDCs is necessarily horrifically bad, but what you just said in that part, as far as if there was one that was based off of expiring or expiration date, I mean, how do you win? How do you win in a system like that? You're always going to be trying to get rid of. Yeah, it's scary. I haven't even given that much thought, but that's scary. With that being said, any final thoughts? We have almost 1,000 people now live on X and YouTube. Any final thoughts to those that are watching? Anything you want to say as we get ready to get out of here?
Yeah, thanks, Jay. I appreciate the opportunity. All these people that are on here are probably just as passionate as we are about crypto. I encourage you guys to keep just doing your research. Don't lose hope at the end of the day. Play the long game. These things take time. Rome wasn't built in a day. But what a time to be alive where we have, this new impending financial system on the horizon. And there's a lot of potential opportunity as retail investors to kind of not only invest in and be a part of this new system, but then also care for your families and investing in these new technologies. If these end up being the Googles and the Amazons of the world here at the end of the day, like, you guys are going to make it out pretty well. Like I said, not financial advice, but, do your own research. It's an exciting time to be alive and to be a part of this and see how this all unfolds here as we see the world is constantly changing. So,
yeah, I agree. Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I think it's an amazing time to be alive. There's some scary things that we've seen, be it COVID, be it, whatever the case, we've seen some wars or possible talks of that. But at the same time, I think it's one of the greatest moments in our history where something that's taking place. The evolution of money is not something we're hearing about down the line, or that has already happened, that we're able to actually make a decision and change our family future for many generations to come. So I'm really, really excited about that. It's been a pleasure having you on, Joel Nelson. Guys, I want you guys to go over and follow my friend. Appreciate you in a major way. Hopefully we can get you back on the show in the future. Yeah, definitely appreciate it. Thank you, my friend. Thank you so much for giving us some of your time. So with all that being said, guys, make sure you go over and follow Joel. Make sure you go over to our Crypto4Life page, hit the subscribe button and notification bell so you guys don't miss anything. And by the way, make sure you guys tune in tomorrow. We've got the one and only Ray Fuentes. I'm super excited. Joel, thanks a lot for being on, my friend. And to everyone else that's watching, we'll appreciate you guys. Have a great rest of your day. Until next time, it's your boy James, aka 68J, and Joel Nelson. Peace.
Thanks.